How good was that? Yeah. Live trades on stage, advanced charting, and a full CNBC options action reunion. You almost expect commercial break. Maybe that's where everybody's going. Commercial break? Is that what it is? So for those who I have not met before, I came from the world of trading. A lot of people here in Robinhood came from the world of trading. They're not quite as old as I am. My first week of trading was 1987. Anybody around for that? Anybody trading during that? Yeah? Wasn't a very good week, was it? It was really strange because I don't know if you remember this, they shortened the trading hours after that. They shortened it to 9:30 to 1:30 to protect, because the market was moving so crazy. But even in those days, and so I like to think that, the market has become increasingly less volatile since I started anyway, although we've had some nice fits of volatility. Oh, sorry, in between. They're going to do a little rearranging here. That brings us kind of to where we're headed next. And we're shifting gears from trading and what could happen with options, let's say, to what will happen. Prediction markets. Instead of thinking about will Apple hit X price and putting $2 on that, we're thinking about will Taylor Swift play the Super Bowl and putting money on that, right? So how many people have done that? Okay. Any luck? All right. Good. In both cases, you're expressing an opinion with dollars. And in some instances, people they're not using them and putting money behind them. They're just using them for information. So like if I think my portfolio is going to be negatively impacted by a 50% rate cut, I can see the odds of that on a prediction market, and whether or not I take action there or in my portfolio, it's providing a value to me. And so I think there's no shortage of things when you start to think about what you could all express interest in or want to see information on. The universe becomes very big, very quick. So what we want to do now is introduce you to a panel on that. And the moderator from this session, you probably know him best from The Big Short, where he was one of the traders who saw the financial crisis coming before almost anyone and bet against the housing market, and very few had the courage to do it. They made a story, a central figure in Michael Lewis's book, and an Oscar-winning movie. Anybody seen it? Big Short? Yes. Okay. Did you like it? Yes. Yeah? Good. But Danny's career goes well beyond that. He spent decades in the market as a trader, investor, and commentator. Today he's the founder of Moses Ventures and host of On the Tape and Breaking Even podcasts. And he's one of the sharpest, most candid market observers you'll hear anywhere. Please join me in welcoming the legendary Danny Moses. How about a big hand for Danny? Okay. Also joining us will be J.B. McKenzie. He's the VP of our futures. He's the one who rolls out these prediction markets. Luana Lopez Lara.
Should be right in the middle.
Co-founder of Kalshi.
No phone.
And Porter Collins, founder of Seawolf Capital.
All right. Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. I'll start with the fact that if there had been an event contract that existed, that I would be in this seat talking about this subject matter. It'd be less than a penny if you know how to run these event contracts. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's actually a dream come true for me, having been a trader for many years, avid predictor of things, kind of all comes together. I think it is a great tool. But I want to start with the panel introducing themselves, and then we're going to take it from there and really dig in. So, JB, maybe begin with you.
Yes, first of all, thanks for having me. J.B. McKenzie. I am the Vice President of Futures and International Brokerage, including prediction markets. I've been kind of in and out of figuring out how the prediction markets would come to play
What's up, Greg?
for the last number of years. But I've been
Saw you from
in the
afar.
industry for over 20 years, which has been fantastic. But really excited about where this marketplace is going to be evolving and where it's going to take us to.
Luana?
I'm Luana Lopez-Lara. I'm one of the founders of Kalshi. We're the largest and first prediction market in the US, and we're powering a lot of the trading that you can do on Robinhood on prediction markets and event contracts.
Nice seeing you. You out of here?
And I'm Porter Collins. I used to be a partner of Danny
Thanks for
Moses
coming.
during the Big Short days. I am now an individual investor, just like most of you here. Have a Robinhood account, trade actively on Robinhood and many other platforms. And I've, like a lot of you, just getting into these prediction markets and try to use them and incorporate it into my investing world. And happy to be here.
Great. So if we can start maybe with a show of hands, who has traded an event contract on Robinhood or Kalshi at this point? All right. That's actually a lot.
I'm joking. I can't trade.
My second question is, who recently opened a Robinhood account for the sole purpose of trading event contracts? That's about what I thought. And my last question was, if you've done that, have you crossed over into trading on the rest of the Robinhood platform as of yet? Okay, yes. All right. So this is good. So,
Danny, you should have raised your hand there, too.
yeah, that's true. No, I've been a long time supporter. So let's start with what an event contract is for those who may not know and why it's different than what you see that's offered maybe on DraftKings and FanDuel. And JB, maybe you want to take a shot at that. I'm happy to chime in, and we can go from there.
Yeah, no, the actual event contract is based upon the probability, right? It's the probability of that event happening out of 100. So it's a really straightforward process, right? I laugh, my 11-year-old twins are doing fractions and percentages right now, and they actually can understand that if we see the probability of an event happening, 75% yes, 25% no, then it comes together to the 100. So it's a pretty straightforward process of creating what the actual contract is. The key component of it is, when does that event occur? So it's really understanding what that event is, because every event has a different duration, right? So whether you're doing a Fed cut, which will be coming up, I think, next week is when the announcement is, or you're doing, what will be the Fed funds rate by the end of the year, those different durations become really important. But at the end of the day, it's really the opinion you have of the odds of that yes or no happening.
And I would just add to that, just as JB just mentioned, so it's based on $1, right? And so the pennies leading up to that dollar. So if it's 50 cents, it's basically a 50% probability that would occur. So even money, if you want to think of it like that, as a way to kind of think about it. So we would not be here at all, Luana, if it weren't for what you've done at Kalshi. And it's pretty fascinating, your background at MIT in statistics, right? That's kind of where these worlds have kind of converged. Talk about the evolution of how you guys founded Kalshi and
Yeah, so exactly. We started Kalshi out of MIT. We were computer science and math nerds pretty much, going into finance. And what we realized is that most trading happens when you have some view about the future, and then you try to put that in the markets, right? So you think the Fed will cut rates, or you think there's going to be a recession, or you think someone's going to win an election, and you try to figure out how to express that in the best or the cheapest way possible in the market. But it's not the best way to do it, right? There's so many other variables moving all of these other products that you can buy, and what we wanted to create is an exchange where you can trade what's going to happen in the future directly, the same way that you trade stocks or crypto or anything else. So the term for this prediction markets, and what we really wanted to do is allow people to trade directly on what their opinions are, with something as simple as like, these are the chances of it happening. I think it's higher, I think it's lower, and you go from there.
And there's a lot of liquidity that we've seen now that's coming in, and I know Susquehanna is one of the market makers you use, and volume begets volume. So what have you seen in terms of the growth evolution, and certainly since you've announced your partnership with Robinhood, what kind of growth have you seen?
Yeah, in the past year we've been growing a lot, and a lot of it is thanks to our partnership with Robinhood, of course, and Susquehanna. And I think that obviously in this market, starting any new market, the big challenge is always liquidity. It's like, how do you get enough liquidity? How do you get enough focus on the other side to get this market going? And having partners like SIG integrating and like Robinhood like integrating really kickstarts this whole thing. We really think prediction markets and event contracts can be one of the biggest asset classes out there, and this like getting it off the ground with folks that really believe in in what we're doing and buying to the mission, I think is really important. And SIG is fantastic. So is Robinhood.
What I think is also very interesting about it is it's just not the market makers that are in this, right? It's actually customer-to-customer trades going back and forth because our opinions may not be the same.
Exactly.
But there is the opportunity for you as an individual to be able to come in and have that dissenting view from whatever that product is. And I think that power and the size, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I remember when the mini S&P got to be so large that most retail investors couldn't actually buy one of them because it was at like $180,000 to $200,000 value. So what did we do? We made it smaller, and it became a mini, then it became a micro. And now I think with these event contracts being small, you can really decide what is the level of risk that you want to put on into a trade. So it could be, like you said, as small as $1, but it could be $1,000 or $100. So it really gives you a really interesting, powerful component as a retail investor to decide that, which you don't normally get in sort of the traditional markets, especially on like the future side.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually because event contracts is so broad that everyone can have a shot at actually learning and forecasting and building models and actually like becoming market makers themselves. And we're seeing a lot of like new market makers coming and starting kind of like almost like mini funds to trade on Kalshi. And I think that's powering a lot of the expansion on the number of markets that we have.
So one of the things I think people should really understand is that they're matching up buyers and sellers. There's not a house here. This is not like DraftKings or FanDuel where, you know, they're not offering favorable events, if you want to call them, what it might be. So this is literally matching up the amount of liquidity like you would buy and sell in a stock. All right, Porter. So we spent many years together trading. We talk about the macro. We talk about ideas, kind of what we think is going to happen in the world. And we use kind of those themes to make single stock decisions at various times. And you've been using these events for a while. So talk about how these event contracts have now become part of your investment process.
Sure. You know, I don't put a lot of trades on sports. I do occasionally. I'm a New York Jets fan, and I will put in a trade saying, "Will the Jets make the playoffs?" No, is the obvious answer. But aside from that, I really got into it with the election, right? And if you look at our portfolio going into the election, there were a lot of trades based on Trump or Kamala, right? And more so in my investment career, Trump and the presidency drive stocks way more than it ever have in my 25-year career investing, right? And so we knew that from Trump 1. So going into the election, it was a very effective tool for us to look at a live market of where the election is, right? And so we had some very big trades in Fannie Mae preferreds and some of the prison stocks and some other things that were the biggest beneficiaries to Trump winning. And on the other side, what were the losers? And so for us to be able to, yes, did I place a trade on Trump winning? Yes, because I thought he was going to win. But more so, I used it as a tool to be able to effectively express my view on stocks. And I still do that to this day. We can go through some other examples, which I see. And so that's how I use them.
All right, so let's take a step back. Since Porter and I traded in a very regulated world, or still do, there's the SEC, there's FINRA, there's all these things. You trade commodities, or there's the CFTC. I think it's important to kind of set the stage for the evolution of this being governed at the federal level and not at the state level. JB, you've obviously built this. This is your job, trading derivatives, futures, and so you've seen this evolution. Explain to everyone the difference in the two and how the Commodities Exchange Act governs the rules here.
Yeah, so this product is a swap, right, which is how it's structured. And that product falls under the CFTC and the NFA, which are two federal regulators that keep an eye on futures and derivatives trading. So if you have a futures account, it falls under the CFTC and it falls under the NFA. With that comes federal preemption, which means that you can offer this product throughout the United States. What's interesting is obviously when it's come to prediction markets and specifically into the sports side, that's been more state regulated and much more focused there. So the state of New Jersey will have a different regulatory regime and view than what you will have over, let's say, in Ohio, Illinois, et cetera. But the sort of the beauty of what you get out of the CFTC and the NFA is the consistency, right? Everybody's treated the same. all the markets are treated the same, right? The rules are very strict, right? And there's a lot of oversight and controls that we have to do. When you think about having 26 million accounts that people are trading, we have to have all that there. So that federal mandate is really the key difference, and the Commodity Exchange Act is what governs that. And so right now, what we've been talking with and have been having a lot of conversations with our regulators, both state and federal, is how this federal preemption is an important oversight for allowing us to offer these products. So whether it's election, economics, sports, price volatility, et cetera, all of those fall under the same rules and should be followed by those rules.
I don't know if you want to add to that, Luan. I'm more curious why you chose Robinhood as a partner and why Robinhood wanted to partner with Kalshi. I mean, I know you're the best at both of what you do. That's the obvious answer, but talk about why you felt it was a great partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty obvious answer. I think Robinhood is obviously like the retail brokerage for the future generation. It's like, and I think in terms of cultural match with what we do is in terms of innovation, in terms of product and the people, it's just like, it's the speed as what they get things out and how they like are very quick to embrace new things and view them. Like we have a great time. We have a shared Slack channel that we, you know, it's fun. We love working with them, and yeah, and it's been fantastic. It was very much when we started the company, one of our dreams was like one day we're going to offer these things on Robinhood. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, that's what Vlad and Beju have built, is an innovative, fast-moving company that's going to put key products into your hands. And whether that is tearing down costs for the expense of trading equities and options, whether it's offering crypto or even these event contracts. And I think to Alana's point, look, we pivoted and launched event contracts for the election, and it took us 3 weeks, right? And then we pivoted and did sports, and it took us around 3.5 weeks because we had to build some new UIs. And we continue to evolve with them. And if you're looking at the various products on the app, all of these are very unique in the actual visual interactions, and we think that's an important thing for us to do well. So you have to have good partners that can adjust with you so that you can meet the needs of what you guys want, because your needs and desires change every day, and we have to make sure, and Vlad will kick me in the backside if I don't get those needs done.
Porter, one of the things that Wall Street's famous for doing, we know, is acronyms, making things complex when they shouldn't be. They do that to be self-serving at various times and charge you a lot of fees on it. The things that I find fascinating on the event contracts are the fact that I would say it dumbs it down, the wrong word, but it explains exactly what you're looking at. So for instance, I don't need to look at Fed fund futures or oil price futures, so forth. I can go on to Robinhood and look and see, will oil be over X? Those futures markets are now incorporated into these events. And I think it's a really way when you think about how intimidating some of these Wall Street products can be. And there's a reason for that. We all know that, Porter. So talk about that also, you think, is just kind of the narrative of, you mentioned before, kind of reading through the things, and it enlightens you. And we're going to bring up an example which helps you when you're going along Google, potentially, over the last several months.
Sure. You know, one of the things that we try to do is, you know, the keep it simple, stupid approach to investing, right? And, you know, I think that was, you know, a lot of people during the housing crisis got caught up in the noise and the markets, and we really tried to see through all that and get to the guts of what brought it down. And I think that's what we were best at, and Michael Lewis talked about it a lot. And so, you know, I see myself as a sort of a financial detective, trying to understand where the markets are. And what I like a lot is transparency, right? If you're an analyst and you're going around trying to see if American Eagle sales were doing really well, right, on the new Cindy Sweeney or Travis Kelce campaign, you know, in the olden days, you would go and walk the stores, right? People don't do that anymore, obviously. And so trying to find more tools that I look at that I can find transparency, right? And so one of the things that after Liberation Day, obviously all the markets crash and Q2 earnings, one of the, you know, we don't really trade the Mag 7, but the one Mag 7 stock that we've consistently owned is Google. And there was a lot of talk about Google really losing the AI race, right?
Porter, as you're doing this, hold on, if you could bring up this is the F1 driver today. I know everyone saw it last night, but JB's going to drive this. So if you go into technology in the predictor market, I mean, you built this thing, but I'm sure you know exactly where everything is.
And so, you know, Google stock was down a lot with all of them, but there was an increased concern that they were going to lose the AI race and the cash cow, which is their search business, right? And so, okay, how do I, as an analyst, understand what's going on? And there's two good examples of this. One is if you go into the App Store, ChatGPT had always been number one, and Gemini was a lot lower. And if you look recently, Gemini has moved into number 2. And then if I go on here, if I had polled this audience, there's no way that Gemini would have been number 1. No way.
You can click the history, I think. You can see the chart. I don't know how far back this goes. Or what it is,
I would have said that, Grok or ChatGPT
I think it was
is
recently
something like 75%.
There it is.
There it is.
You can look at the max right there.
So that literally tracks Google stock. But go ahead, Porter.
Yeah. So that's I think the best example of something that how I try to find transparency and some weird niche, right? Because it's the weird niches that you find the best ideas. And so that's I think a pretty good example of how I use it.
All right, I'm going to go to one that's going to pain JB a little bit, but it's never too late. So let's go under college football.
All right.
For JB.
So not
You may not know JB, Middlebury undergrad, and then Notre Dame, I believe, for graduate school. So the Middlebury football team, I don't know if you'll find a market on that one per se. Division III.
It's a very small market.
So if you go into season outcomes, no, go up.
Oh, I was trying to avoid that one.
Yeah.
Just a funny
there
thing
you go.
about
Click, expand that college football championship. There, we're going to give you an example of how this would work in real time. You're going to have to scroll down a little bit to find your 5 cent. There it is. So the odds of Notre Dame to win championship. So effectively, the way this would work is the way it would work is 5 cents would accrue to $1, right? So you can figure out what that would be. So you'd make 95 cents on the 5 cents, right? Now, when you were to execute this trade, there is a commission that Robinhood makes, Kalshi, that they share in small amounts. So effectively, all in, that would be 7 cents. So effectively, if you want to do the math, 14 to 1 or 15 to 1 probability that Notre Dame's going to win the national championship. I would sell that also, I'm guessing, if you were to do it. Right, there's the 2 cents.
I bought yes.
There, you bought yes? Oh, you're the one. The market's flying now.
I don't suggest, picking up pennies in front of a steamroller, but I would sell that. Right?
Let me just say, during the football weekend, and by there is actually an event on Will Severance win the Emmy for Best Drama. It probably will. But if anyone saw the show Severance, when they were using the computer algorithm, they showed how he had to solve all the things. Remember how the numbers, the letters were flying into the mainframe? Oh, look, entering the mainframe.
There it is.
Entering mainframe. When you're watching on a Saturday or a Sunday during football season, these numbers are literally pouring in. The amount of events are really exploding. And what I like to do is, I won't bring this up here, is I'd like to compare it to the gambling operators, just for reference sake, of the odds that they're offering versus what these event contracts are. And I can tell you to a T, having accounts open everywhere, the odds here are much better. And what's really interesting about it is DraftKings and FanDuel will offer you cash outs during the course of a game and so forth. But Robinhood, as a tool for event contracts, can guide you to what the real market probably should be. And so if you just want to use that as some type of reference point, I think it's really interesting. But JB, the amount of volume that you're seeing, because of football and everything else that's been going, you're probably not going to give out the numbers. But just talk about, is it better than you expected, about as you expected, or?
I mean, it's been better than I expected because I thought actually it would take people a little while to understand and to get used to this different type of market for sports. But in, our opening weekend, over 100 million contracts traded in college football. We see the same thing happening week 2, same thing increasing. The really interesting thing is we had thought March Madness, when we launched that collectively, was going to be the big ticket, right? Because everybody is glued on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that opening weekend. We had 2 times the number of traders trading over this past college football and pro football weekend. So to me, what's happening now is the participation's starting to increase because people are becoming more comfortable. But what they also realize, that ability to trade intra-game is such a unique characteristic that you don't get elsewhere, and it's pricing in real time. So you are literally watching as, statistics are being put up in the middle of a game of, this team hasn't given up a touchdown in the first quarter in, 3 games, or, hey, take J.J. McCarthy this past weekend against the Chicago Bears, no rookie quarterback has led a comeback with 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter since, Steve Young. And guess what? The number 2 one just did it in J.J. McCarthy. But you watch those probabilities, and that market just moved in the volumes, and I'm sure you saw the same thing overall.
No, I think the live experience it's extremely exciting to see while you're watching a game and following the odds, because it's, as you were saying, it's like the wisdom of the crowds, right? Is every single person thinking what the odds are and adding that to the market, and that just becomes a way better odd, and it's just such a great experience to see the lines change, see everything change in real time. It's
Yeah, just point of reference, the Bills on Sunday night against Baltimore at one point were 8 cents, and I went on to DraftKings and it was 8-1. So you can do the math. You're effectively, with paying the fee, you're 10-1 on that. So there are other people in the market, Luana. Polymarket just bought a license to come in. There's going to be growth, obviously. There's room for everybody. But how do you look at Kalshi's product offering potentially different than Polymarket? What sets Kalshi aside from the other DCMs?
Yeah. No, that is a great question. I think that in the end, what wins is the best product and the most liquid product. And I think that's why we are ahead right now. We have a lot more markets, a lot more diversity of markets. We have more liquidity, a lot of it because of our partnerships, a lot more volume. And I think that what is core to Kalshi and how we operate is that we want to be at the forefront of what this market is at any point in time. That's why 5 years ago, we wanted to legalize prediction markets in the US, and then we wanted to legalize election markets with federal lawsuits and everything, whatever it took, and now with sports. And I have confidence we're going to be always the frontier of what the innovation in the space looks like. And in the end, best product wins. And I think that we're very ahead, and we just have to continue executing to be ahead. But every big market has competitors. I think that it's pretty clear. We started 5 years ago, 6 years ago at this point. At the start, it was just us. And now, obviously, with the volume that we're talking about, with the growth that we're talking about, there's going to be a lot of competitors and people coming into the space. But I think it's great. I'm excited to win. So.
When you guys come up with a market, some type of event,
Yep.
How does it originate? And do you check with the market makers that you're using to see if this is a viable, something that could have enough type of liquidity in it, and how much of it's kind of gimmicky and fun just to kind of make noise on the, on the...
That is a great question. So actually, we list almost every market that is suggested of us within 1 day. Most of the markets we list actually come from user suggestions or brokers' requests and things of the sort, because we really think that the power of what we're building is having a wisdom of the crowds for even very niche things. Of course, liquidity is a very key piece. It doesn't matter if you can trade on something if there's no liquidity for it. And a lot of the company focuses on that, and a lot of the key partnerships, as you said, help with that. But throughout the past couple of years, what we really built is kind of this network of smaller liquidity providers that specialize in things like Rotten Tomatoes and weather and very specific niche markets, so that we can get markets up very quickly, and they are ready to start providing liquidity and pricing so that other players come in. But yeah, we have over 2,000 markets in the platform, and a lot of our goals are how many markets can we do and how liquid they are. It's very important for us to keep growing them.
So the other thing I want to just point out from the regulatory perspective is Kalshi is being offered in 50 states in the U.S. Robinhood event contracts are in 49. You have to be 18, not 21, right, in those states too. But you still have to fill out all the KYC and AML stuff that you do. This is not a rogue thing that goes on. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit in terms of that process and onboarding?
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who've opened a futures account, the process is very similar, right? We have certain requirements for traders and investors to access all products, whether it's equity, options, futures, or in this case, prediction markets. But you do have to go through an onboarding process, right? We ask you questions about your trading history, your risk tolerance. We make sure you understand the risk of participating in the markets, and obviously age and so forth. And not every person that applies is approved for the account. So the fact of the matter is, when you, again, look at what the oversight and the regulatory requirements are, they are actually very, very high. And then we do our reporting on a daily basis to our regulators, and we follow all of the oversight to watch trading and behaviors and things like that. So it is, it is not as simple as 1, 2, 3 clicks and you're through the door and able to start trading. It is a process by which you have to make sure you meet some minimum requirements, and when you meet them, we approve you, and then you have the ability to look to access the markets.
So Porter, I know you mentioned that you kind of look for certain things, but you tend to scroll through things you might not be thinking about, right?
Sure.
That have triggered some ideas. Can you think of any of the times? I know you talked about Google and other things. I'd love to get a couple other ideas.
So I'm a stock junkie, right? This is what I have enough risk in my stock portfolio. I don't need to, spend a lot of time with betting against the Jets. But, one of the things that one of the trades that we like is, we're looking at some of these cannabis stocks, right? And, one of our favorites is Glass House, but different story. It doesn't trade on Robinhood because it's a pink sheet. It will. trade there eventually. But one of the things it's on Kalshi, but not on Robinhood, is that will they deschedule cannabis? And and so I can go on Kalshi and say, that's interesting. This is where the odds are of them or rescheduling cannabis. And so there's another tool. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can see. Or if I'm really bullish on, which I'm not, but I'm here nor there, on housing stocks, right? And housing stocks are going to do a lot better in a lower rate environment. And so going on and seeing, is the Fed going to cut 50 or is it going to cut 25, right? And you can kind of get a real-time look at some of these more cyclical stocks. I think if the Fed cuts more, cyclical stocks are going to do better than tech. So there's a lot of stuff, information in these prediction markets that maybe people aren't quite thinking about. And so that's how I think about it.
I can tell you during the housing crisis and great financial crisis in 2008, or really started in 2006, that there had been event contracts that just took the Case-Shiller home price index and said, will home prices be higher or lower in 2007 than they are in 2006? That would be all you would have needed to know, whether you wanted to get involved in buying credit default swaps and so forth. So this is going to continue to evolve. So I would tell people, whether you want to trade the event contracts or not, scroll through these things and look, because it's going to trigger something in your mind in terms of, hold on, I wasn't really thinking about that possibility. And every once in a while, to Porter's point, on a rescheduling of cannabis or whatever it might be, there's a massive disconnect, maybe technical reasons because certain stocks can't trade, but it's definitely a wake-up call, to kind of look at. All right, I want to bring up...
Hold on, Dan.
Go ahead.
Just in terms of, if you think about our position in the GFC, we were short every sort of financial company we could find, right? And we were stock guys. And we didn't know the world of credit default swaps. And we hopped into this market of credit default swaps, which was another tool to express our view. This is how I view prediction markets. It's another tool to possibly express your view, right? And you can look through these things and try to express your view. Maybe it's a better hedge than shorting the market, right? Maybe if you have a beautiful mind and start thinking through all these little nuances, and the more information you have, the more powerful of an investor you can be.
Wall Street's been providing. Sorry,
I was just saying, I think it's a great point. If you look here at that chart, that orange line, that's the maintain. Look at it actually drop, and you actually can see where it starts to come through. What's that? September 3rd-ish and so forth. Right after you had Jackson Hole, and when there was dovish comments from Powell, and then you had
jobs report,
and you had Waller, who then came back out. So I do think what's interesting is this is the people's voice, right? So taking this as another form of information, even if you don't trade it, but as an input, we always look at, analysts and see what they're talking about. We always look at what the market's looking at. Now you've got a third tool here, which is what are the other people like yourselves thinking, and where do they see that market going, which to me I think is just such a powerful thing for you as investors to have that didn't exist 20 years ago when I got into the business.
Wall Street, as I mentioned, complicates things, but to Porter's point, credit default swaps were event contracts. Yep. It was, if this defaults, then the insurance policy pays. That's literally what it was. Yeah. And so Wall Street's been offering knock-in puts, knock-in calls, events. It's always existed. It's very bespoke. You can call Goldman Sachs and they'll make a market for you, which is fine. That's all this is really doing, is kind of consolidating that. Sorry, Porter.
Well, no, to your point, this is a clear way to do it. Like they talk about Fed fund futures. I've never traded Fed fund futures in my life because it's just funky and all. Yeah. But here, this is very simple. Right? In a chart view, if I don't like my contract, I'm not going to get gouged by Wall Street and get out of my contract. It's simple. It's easy to use. I can get in and out.
Luana, I'd love to get your comments on that.
I was going to add something that actually before we started the company, one of the things that made us think about prediction markets was exactly this. My co-founder worked at Goldman Sachs, and folks would call Goldman and be, I want to get exposure to Brexit maybe happening. And then Goldman would actually be able to do something for them around that. But it's not accessible to everyone. It's extremely expensive. It had to be like, I don't know how many millions of dollars you needed just to be able to call them. And I think with this, you actually have access to all of those things, which is something that we really cared about.
That's a great example. And Porter, Vinny, myself got hit pretty hard on Brexit at the time. And yeah. You could have looked at at the sterling or the British pound would have been the way you potentially would have played. There's a lot of ways to kind of angle that could have been telling you what would happen. I wish you had those, events up back then. All right, so before we get to Q&A, I wanted to bring up one more contract, which is the golf contract and the Ryder Cup. So to me, that's a Super Bowl. You're not going to like which side I would take on it necessarily, but that's fine. Bring up golf.
I can't read. My eyes are so bad.
Good.
There we are.
You're almost there. Golf, Ryder Cup. There it is. There it is. So I find this interesting because put that one on your radar screen for a lot of reasons. So I'm sure people know the Ryder Cup, USA versus Europe, 12 players. So there's Monday round on Friday, an afternoon round, Monday round, Saturday, afternoon round, and then singles on Sunday, and it's kind of set. So that will be a tremendous trading vehicle on the events that recur, and there's so much that goes into it, and that's going to be one I think is going to be really interesting. So I kind of like 38 cents, given that. This is kind of what I'm looking at. Any thoughts there?
I mean,
yeah.
I may or may not have already. Luke Donald's a Northwestern grad. For those that know, he's
the coach. He's the captain.
The captain of Europe. But those teams look good. I mean, look at how much this has moved around. It's like people are really much. You've seen the U.S. as being the high side. Right. That didn't happen when they played 4 years ago. It went the exact opposite way. But I think what you find with golf is there's tremendous participation because you can watch it hole by hole, and you're actually watching them shoot. And you're seeing that ball go into the green, and then all of a sudden you're watching that market start to move because people are like, oh, maybe that's like my golf shot, and it's got pushed to the right and it's in the sand trap. But you really see it in real time start to play, and the markets just amazingly move back and forth.
Luan, I want to ask you the same question that I just asked previously to JB. You're not I'm sure you weren't looking at sports back when you were at MIT doing statistics. I assume you weren't looking at the Jets and Patriot game at the time. The evolution of all of this, I'm sure all your engineering and people are like, wow, let's just, talk about how surprised you are at the growth that you've seen over the last several weeks.
Yeah, I think that sports it's kind of obvious in a way when you look at it, but I think that it is surpassing our expectations on how big this market is, and it is a completely different way to engage with the game, and some people are used to sports betting, how we were concerned there would be understanding, people would have difficulty understanding what it is and how it functions, but it's been growing a lot, and I think the first time we had this shock was around the election, that it was I'm sure you guys had the same, it was just so much volume so quickly, because I think the interest is there, and I think the thing with events is there are so many events in the world, and there's so many things that people are interested in, how do you find them and actually offer them in a liquid, good formulation of a market? But yeah, no, this already, week 2, I think it's already been surpassing our expectations. We now have way higher goals for the company. Just changed all the numbers up.
Porter, do you have something you wanted to add?
No, all good.
Okay, good. All right, so we wanted to open it up maybe Q&A now if anyone has any questions. Yes, right at the mic, ready to go.
Appreciate that. One of the things, you had mentioned comparison to DraftKings. It's one of the things I do all the time is look at especially for live bettings, what DraftKings is, Robinhood, factor in the commission, etc. The one thing that you can't really do in the prediction markets is parlay, right? So you take the, and we're in Vegas, so not to sound like a degenerate, so I think I'm safe here to say it here, but
that's redundant here.
I guess the scenario would be if I take a bunch of high probability events, right, and kind of combine them, that increases the return. So somebody that's like a minus 700, minus 2,000, minus 3,000 in football parlance, and 90 cents here, 80 cents here, 70 cents here, it becomes expensive to take the 90, the 80, and the 70 unless you can put them all together.
Luana, I think my mic's on, did you plant that question? Because I think there's rumors of a new product offering coming potentially from...
Yeah. We are working on a lot of different and new types of structures for markets, including combinations of different markets and things of the sort, and we hope to be rolling out very soon. But I won't have more details right now, but there are a lot of these similar products when you think about combining different option legs and things of the sort, so it's actually already something that is done in the financial industry quite a lot, especially when you go into more exotics and things like that, and when you work with banks and things of the sort. That's something we are looking into, coming hopefully very soon.
I can tell you that DraftKings and FanDuel are definitely concerned that if there's parlays offered on events, in-game live wagering is one thing, parlays is a whole other thing, so we'll see how that goes.
There's 2 mics there.
Oh, sorry. Hey,
Hello, Danny.
You're a pretty good blackjack player from what I hear, Bob. Go ahead. Yeah.
You actually started to answer the question I was about to ask about what event contracts mean for the existing ecosystem of FanDuel and DraftKings, and I had a question for JB as a follow-up.
Yeah, well, I mean, look what happened right off the bat, right? FanDuel and CME made an announcement of a joint venture together. You had crypto and Underdog. So I think the fact of the matter is that they're realizing that this marketplace is here, and it's going to continue to evolve and build, and that there's two choices. You either can say, I'm not going to participate, or you're going to. I think the fact that they're all coming into the market as quickly as they are shows that they see this as a product that's here to stay, and that they need to be figuring out how to get it integrated in there. So similar to kind of Luana's point earlier when it came to how do you deal with other exchanges building product, my belief is they should all come into the market, because what we're going to do is bring more people to the ability to see these products, which ideally means more liquidity, which means more accuracy in these of these prediction markets, and probably another evolution into products like you're talking about with parlays or players or into other economic ones as well.
I would add to that the target market in the U.S., which DraftKings and FanDuel have not been able to get into, are Texas and California. And these event contracts can be traded in Texas and California. And so they're getting a head start, these event contracts. And so any potential customer that DraftKings and FanDuel would have wanted or would want in the future, I believe that DraftKings will make an acquisition, is my guess. There's been rumors of it in the event contract business potentially, and go into the states with non-sports that they're not in right now in the sports states. So they're in 38 states, 39 states. I think you'll see the growth in there. And they're going to plant their flag somewhere because they can't sit idly by and watch this happen. So,
all righty. Danny Porter, your call-in was 0708. Kudos. My compliments, brother. You touched on it, Danny. I think to a certain degree, if you purchase NVIDIA, a stock play, a church raffle, lottery ticket, it's still a prediction market. It's an event contract to a certain degree. But here's my question. If it's binary, yes, no, Kansas City, and in essence you have a money line at 75 cents. That's a 3-to-1 money line. How long before, JB, before Robinhood incorporates, as opposed to the money line, the spread, Kansas City -6? It's just Laura's team, they've already written the algorithm. It's a parameter in this binary outcome, Kansas City -6.5. Because the reason I ask this is the vast number of players don't play money lines. We play spreads. Yep. And it just seems like there's an enormous, maybe 90% market out there that if we tweak the binary parameter, Kansas City minus the 6.5 versus having to pay 4-to-1, that you have an enormous gain in volume. So how long before, or do we have to tiptoe around the regulators and Congress to make this happen? I know you guys have thought through this a million times, but as an investor or a player, that's what we're wanting to know.
Great question, by the way.
Yeah. So I can start with part of it, but I think the more important part is that what Luana is going to tell you in a second that's on there, which is they already are listing some of these. And so we're looking and watching. So with any product that we list, we look right off the bat to see what is the client demand, right? I want to make sure that before I list something that there's interest by clients. Then I look at the liquidity, and I look at I say to myself, can this product now fit with our ecosystem? When those start to say yes, then we look to go list it, test it, and do that. You guys just listed, I think, spreads last week, right, or the week before?
We just listed spreads, totals, and touchdown player props. And I think it's actually something that we like, also having it to make sure that all the liquidity is in place, everything is buttoned up before you guys take the product, because obviously it takes it to a next level. So we always take our platform as well as almost like a training ground, and then we're like, it's ready to grow up and go to Robin.
Let me just add to that. It basically can exist right now easily, and here's how. If you have the spread of -6, which is the line, it's 50-50, right? So the event could be, will the Chiefs win by 6? And effectively, it's 52-48 because the 2 cents that would come on top. So effectively, it's 108 instead of 110, -108. Sorry for anyone. Sorry to go deep into the weeds on that. But one other thing I want to point out, which if you're on Robinhood, in my account, in the gold account on Robinhood, I'm getting 4.5% on my cash. And my DraftKings account that's sitting there, Lutarski. Right. So you think about the other advantages that you might have to do that. So I wanted to follow on to that. Sorry.
Oh, hi. Yes, I think you briefly touched on part of my question. I was curious, you had mentioned there's thousands of contracts on Kalshi. What's the selection process for Robinhood? I'm more interested, less in the sports and more in hedging. For example, on Webull, I can say, okay, what's the S&P going to close at 1,400 today? So that's useful to me. Let's say I'm trading futures. I feel like I can use that as a hedge. I would love to see it on Robinhood. I'm curious about the selection process there. If you foresee any of those types of index futures contracts coming to Robinhood, like the short term. I do see like by the end of the year currently, but nothing like today at 1400.
That's a good question. I asked him that earlier, so that's good.
So what we do is a similar thing, right? We start off with where's the interest? We start to look at that, and we've now watching it shorter and shorter, and more people have started to ask that, and then we work with them to list them. So I would tell you that we think the financial markets are really I think it's the foundation of the prediction markets. I think what you get with elections and sports is sort of the gasoline that goes on top because everybody has an emotional and a true opinion, right? If you're a Bears fan, you still think, despite losing their opening game, that they're probably going to be winning the Super Bowl. I'm not a Bears fan. I'm a Bills fan, so that works out easier for me. But yes, nobody circles those wagons. But I think more importantly is we want to keep adding that on and developing out those products. I think if you'll be watching here shortly, you'll see more and more of those financial products and shorter duration ones come through. We just want to make sure it also fits into the app very seamlessly in an experience where I can cross data for you. So if you want to look at the S&P or you want to look at the prediction market, we get those data points together to you very nicely. So it's work that we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hello. All of you are amazing, by the way. So happy to be here. I had a quick question about on the chart, there was volume. Some of them looked like 1 million people were getting those options. Some were in the 100K, 200K. What does that number mean right there? So if you go back one.
I think there's the number of contracts that are being traded, and then there's also the dollars that are available within that market.
Back one more time.
Oh, you went back more? Sorry.
Well, Green.
Right there, you see that's 1.3 million, and then on the bottom it's a huge number. Is that total amount of people buying contracts, volume? What's that number?
That's the total volume that's traded on that specific contract. It's not by each one of them. So the top one, I think it says, sorry, I can't read it.
1.38 million contracts have been traded in that.
Versus 390,000, which is the one below that.
Yeah.
And that's what it builds out to. So that's as that contract has been put out there to marketplace. So that's the total open volume that's traded.
Yeah.
I'm sure right now on the Fed rate cut, if you brought that back up, you're going to see if this is this live?
And one contract's $1, is that correct?
Everything accrues to $1. That's correct. Okay. So you'll see there's probably if you were to open it and choose one of the sides on the event, you'll see severance, what I was talking about, potentially coming in here, and it'll change. Yeah. So that's a lot. That's 20 million contracts are probably growing.
And is that on Robinhood alone, or is that Kalshi, or what is that number?
That's the exchange number. So just like we do with the S&P and we do everything else, those are those numbers that are from them.
Those are amazing numbers. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Hi. Thank you for having the event. It's Andrew from Austin, Texas. Question for Robinhood. When I look at the previous screen, actually, where you have all the different things at the top, like economics, financial, golf, I was wondering if you had put any thought into having something like life hedges, because the audience being retail investors, right? Like I got into Kalshi when I saw that they had an event contract for student loans, and I have student loans, so I hedged that they would not get rid of them, so then that way I could end up positive if they got rid of them or if they didn't. And I was wondering if you could like market it in a way to where it was easier for people in retail to understand that, because you also have like egg prices, for example, or the price of gas, or things that could, bring people in retail like real value just from like their life, things like that.
So we're always looking to kind of build, and we've worked very closely with Kalshi on products and trying to figure out the right ones. To your point there, one of the things that our focus is, and the gentleman, Mike Obachino, who was up here earlier, is building better education and a better user experience so that you can understand where this could fit in your portfolio. But like the question you're asking about doing something with student loans, like yes, I mean, I would love to talk to you afterwards, figure out what could be there, and then we can go work to go build those contracts. Again, the goal is to build these event contracts to fulfill your guys' needs. So if we can understand where it is and we can build something that's appropriate for it, we definitely will try to go and list it. That's, like I said, that's the mantra. Like we're trying to democratize finance for all.
Great,
That's a great point. I think there was one more question there was a guy, Zach Doctor. If he could, no, he can't ask the question. Ixnay on, okay, sorry. Zach, we'll talk
Catch us afterwards.
All right, thanks. All right, good. I think we're being driven out of here at this point, so we're going to cut it short. But thanks, everyone, for coming in here, and thanks to our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a great job with this one.
Nice job. Thank you. Thanks. All right, how great was that panel? We're going to take about a 15-minute break and be back with a futures panel. So we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you.